All right, we are back on the 65 Mustang, and we are going to replace the turn signal for the on the steering column and try to fix the horn. We are also replacing the steering wheel with a wood grain wrapped in rubber. Has the, I forgot what the name of it's called, but we're going to a smaller steering wheel instead of the bigger original. And what we need to do is replace the turn signal. Well, I learned quite a few things when I started to mess with this. I replaced the turn signal. The turn signal assembly is right here, the original. And as you can see, one of the pins is missing. And that pin was shoved down in one of the holes that there was in the actual steering column. And so it was broke and it was no good because it wasn't making contact with both. So I took snips and I snipped all the wires off and I replaced this with a new one. Well, I found out that there is a certain thing you have to do for the new ones to fit in and work properly. One of the things is this steering column cover that has a front and a cover on the actual column separate. There is 2 screws in here. They're very small. I don't know if she can get in here and show you that or not, but they're right there at the tip of my finger. And there's one at the bottom. And you take them 2 screws out, and this bottom part of it slides off, and it creates where you can have room to work on this part and the wiring. So what happened is I put the new turn signal into here, put the ring in, screwed it down, and I put the new steering wheel on. Well, once I put the new steering wheel on, I forgot a major piece, which was this spring. It keeps the tension on it so it doesn't tighten down too tight and break. This is a piece that goes behind this. You have to take this off to replace, and it is called a bearing, the steering column bearing. And that bearing allows the steering column to turn and to create a rotation where you can turn your steering wheel. Well, that goes in there, and then they have a piece that goes inside of it, and it creates a tight fit around the steering column. And when you turn the steering wheel, this creates a turn, and it's easily done. And so them 2 pieces have been replaced already. But when I put the new turn signal assembly in and put the ring in, the 2 posts broke off because I over tightened it. There is also a spec on how tight the nut for the steering wheel needs to be, and I didn't follow that instructions either. I am very novice when it comes to working on Mustangs, but I inherited 2 different projects. This is the 65 Fastback that I inherited because the gentleman that was working on this died from cancer, and his estate sold, and we got the Mustang out before all of that took place. He had the Mustang for many years, 14 or 15 years, and he has about 85% of the Mustang done, and I am going to try to finish it. Well, I have learned a lot already that sometimes you got to redo things 2 or 3 times just to learn how it really fits together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this turn signal assembly here by taking these 3 screws out and take the ring off again for the second time and replacing it with a new one. When you put the turn signal assembly in, you have to make sure that the little post here on the one side goes down into the hole on the left, and as you can see on here, there is a hole for the knob or the handle that goes into the steering column that locks into this, and that's where you raise and lower the handle to make the blinkers or the turn signal work. So I'm going to take this one I broke because I didn't follow instructions, and I'm going to replace it with a new one that has the 2 pins. These 2 pins are valuable because they are your horn. Now what needs to happen now is you take the wiring harness and you put this in through the hole here, and you go down and you put it into the hole on the steering column, and it runs down and it connects down here with a connector. Now there's 2 connectors down there. One of them is a wider connector. It's probably about 1 inch wide, and it has like 8 wires to it. And there's another connector that is about 1/2 inch wide, and it has 2 connectors. These pins are made where you can take the wires that are in there out and place these and pop them in, and they lock in, so you can just use the same harnesses on the Mustang that has them already. This tool is pretty fancy, but it actually helps greatly because you put it down into the connectors, and they have 2 little pins on each side of these rods, and it pushes them down, and you can pull them out and replace them with these. The colors of these wires and the colors that exist right now are a little different, but they are close enough that you don't have to worry about guessing what color goes where. You can figure that out by just looking at the colors that exist. All right, so we're going to take this and put the assembly in and run the wires out. I'm not going to connect the wiring today because that is a little time consuming. I might have a time lapse for you on that. But what we need to do is we'll take the harness down there, disconnect it, and pull the wires through. And then these wires, of course, I will tape up and pull them through back down to the connector so we can replace them. So we'll put these in through this kind of a rectangle hole on the side. Put all the wires through there. Bring up the head of the turn signal assembly. And I want to just show you what I have learned on this, and maybe it will help you from doing or repeating what I have done 3 times and it still was not good for me. Okay, so I'm just trying to help someone out that needs help to put. Also, when you get this, I forgot, these 2 need to be separated from this side. So I just take a little razor blade, don't cut the wires, but cut the tape that's around them, and separate these 2 wires from the other. And what that does is allow you to put these 2 wires through this side of the column. See, it doesn't take long before you forget what you're doing here, but I have learned what not to do and what to do, and hopefully this time I can do it with success and actually leave the steering wheel on. What I'm trying to get at is, when I talked to the gentleman, I was good friends with the gentleman that was working on the Mustang, and he shared with me when he had cancer, when he got cancer and he found out he had cancer, he took me over and showed me what he was doing to the Mustang to try to finish it. He was trying to give me ideas of where he's at with it, but I took a lot of notes and stuff from him, but I still could not really figure out where he's at or what he was doing with this, because it was in such a disarray in his garage, and he had not just this project, but he had other ones that he was doing. Now that sits in there like that. These two pins are supposed to flex upwards where they shoot down. If I can get that one wire behind there to go into the hole and not block me from putting it in here the way it's supposed to be. But they are supposed to flex like that. It is supposed to flex and spring back. And then you put this retaining ring back in there, and I will do that in a second, but I need to get this wire from being in the way. It's still protruding where it's not supposed to. So let's try to get that flexed out here. And when I first started this, I thought this was a simple process that you could just do, because I've watched many people do it on YouTube and other places, and it seemed like they were doing it pretty easy, but I found out not everything you see on TV or on YouTube turns out the way you think it is and how easy it is, because it's really not. I'll just let you know that up front. But see, that one went in that hole, and this one is supposed to go in that hole. And so we'll put the retaining piece back in now. And you just have to wiggle it around to get it in there. Because this turn signal assembly also has clips on each side that actually has these arms that actually the steering wheel assembly connects to, and actually it connects to, and it turns the turn signal off when you put the steering wheel back to its original position. The problem is sometimes you don't put that in when you go to do this process, and you forget about it, and and sometimes beginners never know, and you don't want to over tighten these, so you got to be very careful not to over tighten them or break your new turn signal assembly. If I can get it back in here, that'd be great. But I'm doing this live because we don't want to edit the film or anything, so I'm trying to do this stuff for y'all live. So, but it's also to help people that have never done this, maybe to understand what they need to do to get these back in. I'm going to take my Leatherman here and try to use it if it has the point in there, but I don't think it does still, because I'm not trying to strip this out. I'm just trying to get these in. So once you get the turn signal in, the rest of it's pretty easy, but to line this up can be a challenge sometimes, as you can see. Let's get this a little longer, maybe. You can do it 100 times, but when you go to actually do it again, you have some other problem, or for some reason it's not. Trying to find the screw hole again is starting to be a problem here. Oh, it's got to go down, I wonder. There it goes. Now let's see if it'll fit in there. Now let's see. The third time is the charm, I guess. I don't know. We're going to snap it again if we don't watch it. I'm just trying to get this wire behind here from holding it up. It's still binding back there. And that's what is the problem when you're a very novice person doing this, is you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing or how the things are positioned and anything like that. And you learn by experience, and the problem is most of the time you break it before, there it goes, before you get it where you want it. But once we get this ring in, then we can put the steering wheel back on. All right, so that's one. And then we got two more. And once we get these in, then that part will be done. Like I said, I'm gonna run the wire later, and I'll probably put it on a different video, maybe time lapse it, because it's such a pain to try to get that all taken care of. But we have that on, and we had a kit that, this is the one thing that I forgot last time, like I said, was putting the spring back on before we actually put the cover on. So in the kit for the new steering wheel, now I'm gonna be able to lose that. I had it here short time ago, and I don't know where it went to. But it was the actual, there it is right there. This is the piece for the new steering wheel. So this goes on now, and it has 3 screws. And this just presses on, and it holds the 2 buttons down for the horn, but this spring helps it from not over tightening as much. And so once you put the horn on, you press that down and you get contact with the horn buttons, and that's what gives you. So you put these on, and this comes with several of these kits with these. There's several of them, and of course for me the biggest one is actually the one that will work on this. And what you do is you take the 2 wires that come with this piece, and you put them through this big hole that you will not use, that doesn't have any nuts or bolts that go through it. And you put these wires, you feed these wires through it. You try to line up this bottom hole to your actual cover bottom hole. And so you have to line these up pretty close. And then you take the steering wheel, which is over here somewhere, and you put this on. But see this hole in the steering wheel? That's where the wires go through the steering wheel. And you put it through like this. And all this stuff falls apart while you're doing this, and then you have to put it back together several times, because it's not as simple as it looks when somebody does it on video. It's just challenging sometimes. Okay, so you have the cap on, you have that part on, and then you put the steering wheel on. And as you're doing this, you should be able to push it in. Far enough to get the nut started. And that is right here. And you just want it started because you have 3 of them screws that want to Charity, can you actually, Philip, come around here, please.
Okay.
Come on. So I'm gonna have my son help me hold this in if I can, or I got it now. And once I get this on, then we can try to line the 3 holes up in the horn system that comes with the new. So we got that on, and then we take our wrench and we tighten this nut up. And I'm just going to do semi-tight because, like I said, I just want it on where it won't come off. And then we can line these holes up. So what I normally do is at this point, I take the 3 screws that go to it, which I am going to have to see what I did with them. All right, pause it. All right, we're back and had another problem. The steering wheel didn't line up, and let me just explain it to you what I'm doing. Taking the nut back off, and the steering wheel has to be lined up where this is straight up and down with your front wheels straight. So that's what I didn't do, and the wire was catching and pinching again, and so I'm just trying to get it where it's straight up and down, and then we can put the cover that's underneath it on there, but it's not wanting to go back on. All right, so let's try this again. So you want to press that all the way down, hold it, and screw this in, and then have the, like I said, that bottom rail facing straight up and down. And then you can line up your cover with it instead of trying to line this up with your cover. The problem is, I'm going to take this back off because I'm going to show you something. So my idea is to have this in here like this and have these screw holes together with it. I just want to show you what I did to make sure you explain, because I was kind of lost when it came to this. So, and it tore up the wires to start with the first time I did it. But this goes in here like this, and it actually should line up with the holes. And this holes should line up with the steering wheel that is kind of like that. You want it somewhat in the vicinity of what you want when it's done. So you just want to make sure that you have them facing the right way in the right direction. Then you put the wires back through like this. And I'm just trying to save you some headache if you're going to do this, because I thought I could just throw this together and be done with it, but it's not as easy as it looks. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not as easy as it looks. And the wires are not long enough really to, and you gotta need 4 hands and that type of thing to get it done. But so if I can put them in there and then pull this up and put the steering wheel back on, but just to try to keep it in line and keep the tension on it. I think everybody should probably cuts out that part because it's not as easy as it looks. But I try to do it real time so you can see what kind of trouble you're going to have when you're doing it. And it's not as easy, like I said, as it looks. So, trying to get this cap on it. And some people probably put the bolts in, the 3 bolts in before trying to put the nut on, and that's probably a little easier. So let's try it. So we'll take one of the bolts. Let's try to line it up again.
And poke it off again.
Let's just put this in the cap and then have the wires through and then feed it through. And we'll put this in. Try to put it in this way and then feed it to and press it on. So we'll screw this into it. The idea is to get this lined up, because if you don't have it lined up, the wires get pinched really bad and cause issues. So once you put the nut on, it actually keeps the tension on the steering wheel. But let's see about now. Trial and error, that's how we learn. So I'm learning the hard way, I guess, but some people learn that way. So now I got the nut on and it's lined up, so it should be a little easier now. Let's put the other 2 other nuts in, if it's lined up on enough to where I can get it in. So after this, once you get these nuts in and the wires are all not pinched in there, then you start working on putting the horn assembly together. And the horn assembly is fairly easy. You just plug these 2 wires into 2 different plates that go over it. I'm trying to get this lined up. I thought it would be pretty simple, but it's still not. Maybe I should have put all 3 of them in before I put the nut on. All right, let's try that. So just hang around, we'll get it together, because I have done this several times, and the other times I was able to put it on, but like I said, I forgot the spring the last time, and so it was easy. There was no tension or anything where you had to worry about it lining up or anything like that. So the idea is to put the 3 bolts in before you put the main bolt onto the column, and have all this lined up so you can just put the main bolt in. Hopefully that will go in now. I don't know where the last one went. Still not wanting to go in, so it's not in the right place. Maybe that's it. I think I finally got it in. Them 2 are lined up, so the other one will go in once we get it on. I'm just gonna put it on now, and then we want this like this. Like I said, you want this straight up and down. You're gonna push this on, make sure you have that spring in there because it puts the tension on, and then push real hard and put the nut on. And of course we'll tighten that up, and then this plate goes on, and the wires of course go through it. This will plug in, one of them will plug into it, one of them will plug into the other one, which sits on them nuts, them bolts. And where's my last one at? So after a short time, I found the third one, and it goes in here. And they will all be tightened down, of course. And I just want to show you how to finish. So then you put the plate on. This goes on next. And actually, see what I did? I didn't see, I still did it wrong, because these will go on, but I'm gonna tighten the middle nut up so the steering wheel don't move while we're pulling them off and putting them on the ring. Now my socket won't go in there. And all right, so we can take these out, I think, because the nut is tight. And then we got to put the horn assembly together. So the horn assembly, you put this bottom plate on like this. Of course, this got to go through these little curvature holes in the side of it. And these goes down onto the steering wheel itself. And them holes line up. And then there is this spring, and it's just a little spring that goes on here. And what happens is this hooks to this. It goes into here, goes into the actual horn cover, and it slides right in there. I'm gonna have to do some, they say that some of these aftermarkets, you have to do some repairing to it. But what it does is you plug one of these wires into it, one of the wires into this one, put this on here, put the spring in there, and then you put it down in it, and it locks on with the screws. So this will lock on with the screws, and then you put this over and it pushes the horn. So, and they sent this, but I think I'm gonna use this one because it's big enough to actually fit around it where it won't mess with the bolts, but it'll be big enough to have flexibility on the horn itself. All right, so that'll do it for this one. If you have any questions or suggestions how to do it better, let me know and leave it in the comments, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.